Welcome to the radio learning program for Teacher Training College, produced by Rwanda Education Board with support from UNICEF in collaboration with Inspire, Educate, and Empower Rwanda. My name is Teacher Emma, and I'll be taking you through today's lesson, which is about foundations of education, and specifically, we are going to be looking at forms of education. Students, I know very well, before schools closed, you had been introduced to the foundations of education. Foundations of education is a very important discipline to a teacher in the making. And I know that at the end of 2-3 years, all of us are going to become teachers. But foundations of education covers a number or a range of disciplines. When I talk of disciplines, and this is specifically to let you know that within the foundations, we look at the psychology of education, we look at the philosophy of education, we look at the sociology of education, and we also look at the history of education. These are very important aspects to us as teachers in the making. My dear friends, before we start our lesson today, I want to remind you always, in a series of such lessons, please always make sure you have a pen and a notebook, because you will be required to make your own notes, and these will be helping you as you do revision in this period. Very good. So, as I mentioned, today we have an interesting lesson, and we are going to be looking at forms of education. When I say forms of education, students, what comes into your mind? Very nice. Now, we have got 3 forms of education that every teacher trainee or someone who is preparing to become a teacher must bear in mind. And today, we are going to be going through and discussing in detail these forms of education. Very good. So, I hope that you are near the radio and you are in a place that doesn't have a lot of disturbances. So, my dear friends, we have got 3 main types of forms of education. We are going to be starting with the formal education. When I say the formal education, this is the type of education that even right now that you are all going through. So what does it mean? So formal education or formal learning usually takes place in the premises of the school, where a person may learn basic academic skills and gain knowledge and understanding. In most cases, actually, small children often attend a nursery or they begin studying from nursery school, but often formal education begins in primary and goes all the way to the higher institutions of learning, including universities and teacher training colleges, which most of you are in the TTC. So, dear friends, when we talk of formal education, we have seen that it takes place within a school setting. Therefore, formal education specifically is carried out by qualified teachers. In other words, these are people who underwent through a training for a certain period of time, and that training aiming at preparing them to become teachers. And I am very happy that all of you chose to be teachers like me. In other words, when you finish the college, you become a qualified teacher who is qualified to carry out teaching in a formal institution or in a formal school. Formal education, again, it observes strict discipline. within a school setting, we have got discipline or a structure that we must follow as we learn day by day. The students and the teachers, both of them, are aware of the facts and engage themselves in the process of education. My friends, formal education is very interesting because we acquire knowledge and we learn day by day. Now, my dear friends, I want you to take a few seconds and I want you to think about, when we talk of formal education, what are the characteristics of formal education? You have a second. Yes? Very good. Formal education, it has got a syllabus and subject-oriented. We have a syllabus that we have to cover from a certain period of time to a certain period of time. As you know, even at college where you are, every term you've got a set of lessons or subjects and topics that you are supposed to cover within a term. Formal education also is structured in a hierarchical order. What do I mean here? We have got primary 1, primary 2, primary 3, all the way up to the university, or all the way up to the teacher training college, or all the way up to a polytechnic. Again, formal education, of course, it is carried out by qualified teachers like you guys are going to be. Formal education is carried out by qualified teachers. And I know very well that members who are listening to me now, you are preparing to become future teachers. Formal education also leads to some form of certification at the end of a course or level. For example, when you finish college, you are going to be given a diploma certificate. And when someone goes up to the university and they finish the university education, they are given a degree certificate. So within a formal education setting, there are always those forms of certifications that we have to undergo. Formal education also follows a set grading system. In your college, day by day, as your tutors teach you, they grade you. And at the end of the year, then you have a final grade that gives you a promotion to another class. So, my dear friends, this is an interesting subject. So, foundations of education goes deep in looking at all these aspects that a teacher in the making that has to be taken through. Now, my dear friends, we are going to be looking at the examples of formal education. Remember, we said learning takes place within a classroom. What do I mean? In the classroom, there is always a teacher and students to be taught. Again, remember, the lessons or the subjects that you learn are always planned and they follow a syllabus or a set curriculum for whoever is going to be going through the institution. Welcome back again, my dear students. Remember, we have been discussing formal education, and I told you we have 3 forms of education. Now, we want to discuss briefly about informal education. We have seen that we have got a structured formal education, but that is not the only way we learn. We also learn informally. In other words, informally or informal education is the opposite of formal education. So informal education happens outside the classroom. It could be at home. It could be within the peer groups. It could be through mass media, like the radio lessons, for example, that you are going to be learning moving forward, starting from today. It can be a TV program. It can be a magazine. It can be internet. It can be a book from the library. It also happens through a number of arrangements within our communities. Sometimes we have got faith-based community learning arrangements that we go through. And so informal educations, this can be done by a parent teaching, for example, a child on how to ride a bicycle, or a parent teaching a child on how to make tea. So that is also knowledge that we gain, but in an informal setting. My friends, also with informal education, you can acquire it, or you can acquire knowledge by yourself. You can read a book. You can, or sometimes even we meet life experiences that at times end up becoming a lesson. For example, we have got institutions or places where we meet people and where we learn. And sometimes you learn. And at the end of the day, now that becomes part and parcel of your life. So, informal education is also very, very important. Informal education does not follow an organized curriculum, or it does not have a syllabus to follow. Informal education also, it is generally flexible. Learning is, I would say, we learn through fun. It can be play. It can be through the experience that you are learning. Again, the lessons we also learn there are also very vital. So as a teacher in the making, it is very important for you to know that children learn in different ways. They can learn at school. They learn also informally, at home, and also within communities. Informal education is when you are not studying in a school, or you are not following a certain particular curriculum, and it is neither pre-planned nor deliberate. It may be learned you can learn at a marketplace, at a hotel, at home, on the way. So there are so many ways. I want you to remember situations where you have got to learn and you realize that, oh, I didn't know this before. Or maybe I have seen someone on how, maybe for example, they use an ATM within an ATM machine at the bank. So when you learn that, that's an informal way of acquiring knowledge on how, for example, to do banking. My friends, are we together? Very good. I am happy because I'm talking to teachers in the making. My dear friends, remember, unlike formal education, informal education is not always given by institutions. Like, for example, the college you are in. Informal education does not have a fixed timetable like you have at college. So, when I talk of informal education, what do I mean here? With informal education, a child, they learn different basics. For example, through informal learning, our children learn how to speak their mother tongue. For example, our children in homes speak Kinyarwanda. There is nobody at home who at a certain point of time sat these children down to teach them Kinyarwanda, but they pick it from the environment within a home. Therefore, my friends, informal settings are also important because they contribute to the learning of children. That is why it is also important as a teacher in the making for you to know that the environment that we live in, that our children live in, that the children we teach, plays a vital role in ensuring children getting knowledge and skills. Again, with informal education, there are some characteristics that are, or things that are very common with informal education. Remember, it does not take place within a classroom when we look at compared to the formal education. It has no definite syllabus to follow. Again, with informal education, we don't pay anything. Whereas in formal education, you are required to pay some fees. It is, again, a natural lifelong process. With informal education, life or learning never ends. Let me repeat this because this is very important for you to note. With informal education, it is a natural life learning process. In other words, learning never ends until you die. So, again, we realize that within formal education, at the end of a certain course or level, you are given certification or a certificate. In an informal education, you don't get a certificate to learn your mother tongue, which is Kinyarwanda. Nobody gives you that. So, you can learn from different sources, media, life experiences, and through friends and families. So, my dear friends, I want you to note that also informal education contributes a lot to us gaining knowledge and skills that are very important within our lives as teachers and also for the lives of the students or the children that we are going to be teaching. Of course, informal education, having seen that it is also important, it has got some advantages. And remember, we said it is very natural learning process, so you can learn anywhere, at any time, and within the daily experiences. It also involves activities like individual personal research, and here you could even research on your topic of your own interest. For example, some people go to libraries, others go to internet, other people use different forms of social media. People also meet with their colleagues, with their peers, with their friends, and they get to share experiences. And through those experiences, people gain knowledge and people gain skills. And with the informal education, a variety of techniques and methods are always used. It could be oral, it could be anything. So my dear friends, this is all about the informal education that we are talking about. Again, informal education is less costly, as we saw, compared to the formal education, but it's also very important. So with informal education, we don't need experts like we saw that within a formal education setting, we must have a qualified teacher. So there are different ways we learn. And so we've realized that these three forms of education, I mean the formal, the informal, and the non-formal, are very, very important as we learn. Welcome back, my friends. Now, teachers in the making, we have seen the first two, the formal and the informal. Now, let us take this time and also look at the non-formal education. Because, remember, as a teacher in the making, you must be well-versed with these three forms of education and how they play a vital role in the learning process of a child. So, non-formal education. Now, this is a type of education that sometimes does not follow, of course, the formal way. This could be the adult education where people are learning how to read and write. And again, with the non-formal education, someone is not in school, but they can learn how to read and write. And they could even gain other basic skills, like job skills, for example. Now, somehow, the similarity with the formal education, non-formal education, normally it is carried out by someone who is qualified in that, or who has got a rich experience within that field. So, non-formal education, this could be a home education, individualized instruction. Sometimes we do distance learning. You can learn through a computer-based, instruction that is already set. So there are also other ways through the non-formal education that people acquire knowledge and skills. So non-formal education, it should be organized with different homogeneous groups, or maybe different types of groups of people. And this could be a set, for example, of people within a community who are learning how to read and write. It could be a group of people, or maybe a group of youth within a community who are learning and gaining, for example, building skills, welding skills, carpentry skills. Now, all these people gain skills, people gain knowledge, and normally they have got a flexible curriculum compared to the formal education that they have to follow. Now, there are different ways, there are different examples of the non-formal education. I want you to remember, or maybe even think within your communities, have you seen such type of setting where people are learning in a non-formal way? And normally, in most cases, we have had different community-based initiatives that teach people, for example, how to improve their farming, how to do carpentry, especially supporting the youth to gain skills for them to be able to be job creators. So all these are non-formal education settings that help also people to acquire skills and knowledge that helps them, or that shapes who they get to be. Now, sometimes with non-formal educations, a number of these courses sometimes are offered freely, and people gain skills, and sometimes they don't pay. But normally they are always at the point of supporting people to have skills for them to be able to live a life that is decent. So it's very important, as a teacher in the making, for you to bear in mind all these forms of education, remember, and how they contribute to the learning of children. So the non-formal education, sometimes it's planned and it takes place maybe sometimes outside within a school setting. So if we have a community initiative, and maybe youth are organized to come and study, and I know some of you have even participated in those community initiatives where you go and acquire skills. They are also very important because you learn. So they do not have a fixed timetable like we have, for example, in a formal education setting. So their timetable is flexible depending on the needs of the people that are learning. So unlike formal education, non-formal education is very practical, very hands-on. In other words, it is vocational education, where its aim is to impart skills and knowledge for the people that are going through it. So it is hands-on, it's very practical. Now, my friends, what are the characteristics of that when we talk of the non-formal education? So non-formal education, remember, the same way with informal education, it has no age limit. Anybody can learn at any time. Whereas within a formal education setting, there are a certain age group that we look at. For example, we know that from age 3, maybe to age 10 or 11, these people are supposed to be in a primary school. Now, in a non-formal setting, we don't have a specific age group that is supposed to follow this. An old man can go and learn how to do farming. An old man or an old woman can go and learn how to, be able to improve their lifestyles and all that. So all that is the non-formal. We are looking at the characteristics, remember, of the non-formal education. And with the non-formal education, sometimes fees or certificates, these ones may or may not be necessary. It also may be full-time or part-time, and people might decide when to learn and when not to learn. So, what is also important is that it involves learning of professional skills that we need. My friends, as we come to the end of our session today, remember, we've been looking at the advantage of the formal and the informal, but let's also look at the disadvantages of the non-formal education. As discussed before, formal education is hands-on, it's practical, and people acquire skills. So, naturally, growing minds that do not wait for the system to be amended. Remember, as we grow, we said it is also the same way with informal, where learning is a natural process. So we keep learning. And literacy with skillfulness growth, in which self-learning is appreciated. So sometimes you have a push within you and you say, I need to gain these skills. I need to gain knowledge into this area. And then you go and look for someone or a place where you can be able to acquire that. So, my friends, as we wind up, I want to tell you something, that as a teacher in the making, take this time to make more research about the forms of education and how they play a vital role for you, for me as a teacher already, and for you as a teacher in the making. It is very imperative, it is very important for you to know that the three forms of education contributes greatly to the learning of a child. And remember, learning is a natural process that we go through as long as we still have life. My dear friends, I want to thank you so much for attending to this session. And we are going to have many more of these to help you revise. I want to thank you very much, and I hope to meet you work with you again next time. Bye-bye.